So overnight, Coach John Calipari has decided that he wanted to move and is done with the Kentucky Wildcats and has said, you know what? Enough is enough. I'm done with this fan base. They don't appreciate me. They don't respect me. I'm leaving. I'm out of here. You guys want me out? I'm out. And he has decided that he is going to Arkansas to be their next head basketball coach. Now, at first glance, Arkansas, it's not Kentucky. No, it's not. It's not. It's Kentucky. Look, as much as I despise everything Kentucky, and I do, I can admit that Kentucky is the best college basketball program in America. It is. It is. And I know, what about Duke? What about North Carolina and Kent? No, when it comes to everything that's involved, Kentucky is at the top of the heap. And do you know how hard that is to say as a Louisville fan? Do you know how hard that it comes for me to be able to say something like that? But it's the truth. And y'all know me. I'm always going to be honest and tell the truth. It's the truth. So they are the top of the heap when it comes to college basketball. Now, having said that, that doesn't mean that they're at the top of the heap when it comes to money for a program. Because Arkansas just so happens to have Walmart money. I mean, hell, the arena is Bud Walton Arena. Now, that's not Sam Walton, but that was his brother. He helped start it. Still billionaire family. So they have more money than Kentucky could ever dream of. That they do have. And so Calipari's like, look, first of all, I don't think he was going to be able to change the way that he did things at Kentucky. And what I mean by that is his philosophy on one and dones at Kentucky, I don't think he was going to be able to get out of that trend while he was at Kentucky. I think if he wants to start winning national championships, he's got to get out of that trend. And he wasn't going to be able to do that at Kentucky. They weren't going to allow him to do that. Because if he didn't have the top 1 or 2 or 3 recruiting classes every single year, Kentucky fans were going to bitch about that. And then they're not winning national championships, so you know that they're bitching about that. And they should, by the way. They should. He's got to be better. But you can't have a bunch of freshmen on your team and expect to win a national championship. That's not going to work. That's not going to work. You got to start developing guys. That's right. Eric on TikTok, they weren't going to be patient enough. Exactly. They weren't going to allow him to have the 18th best recruiting class, develop guys as they come along, have guys that would be in the program 3 and 4 years. Kentucky fans didn't want to hear that. And part of that is Calipari's fault because he said, okay, it's a one and done type of thing. All we're going to do is get a bunch of one and done guys, and that's it. Can't win that way. Can't win with a bunch of freshman point guards making all the decisions. You look at the last several national champions. They don't have just a bunch of freshmen running out there. Hell, look at the national championship game this year. Now, Purdue's point guard's a sophomore, but he's a sophomore. And he started all year last year, went through all the heartache. And now he's a sophomore. I'm not saying he's a veteran by any means, but he's played enough basketball to have that kind of experience. Look at UConn. Those guys are seniors. Juniors and seniors out there making the decisions. You just can't win with one and done guys like that. You can't win with 5 of them. You're not going to win. And he realized that. He had to change. Kentucky fans were not going to allow him to change the way that he needed to change. And he said, you know what? A way that I can change, I can go to somewhere else. And Arkansas is not a bad program. They had a down year this year, but Arkansas's got a history. Arkansas is a good program. I mean, the year before they were in Sweet 16, Elite Eights. Arkansas, I mean, they got a program there. They've got money. They've got history. They got a crazy fan base, but not crazy like Kentucky. I think Calipari made a great move. I think he's going to succeed. It'll be interesting to see, but I think he succeeds at that level. Let's take a look here. Let's take a look. Yeah, I just, Calipari leaving, I think is, whew. My man Paul, UK fans for the last 2 years has criticized his unwillingness to embrace the transfer portal over the one and dones. You're right. But wasn't going to change. He was trying to change. It's not the transfer portal. Kentucky were getting transfers. They were getting transfers. But Cal believed that the one and done players were better. So he believed that it was better. So we'll see. We will see. I just think that Calipari, I don't know. I think he was done with Kentucky, and Kentucky was done with him. Sometimes you're just done with each other. So sometimes you're just done with each other, and it's better to move on. Look, his problem was the fans were tired. First of all, the fans were tired of him. Look, if you can't win national championships, it's fine to continue to put NBA guys, guys in the NBA every year. That's fine. But at some point, you got to win. Okay? Yes, I want to be a program that puts guys in the NBA because what does it do? It helps recruiting. You're going to get better players. That's all fine and dandy. But at some point, you got to win with those players. And he hadn't done that. He won one time in 2012, which, look, one time is not an easy feat by any means. But he won one time, and that was it. And Kentucky fans are like, no, we need some titles here. We need some titles. We need some tournament success. Enough with all we do is just pump out one and done players. How does that, first of all, how many of those guys do you think are just turning around and giving money? They haven't even been at Kentucky long enough to be invested. Hell, half the guys at Kentucky that you hear them talking about, big men, Anthony Davis, Karl Anthony Towns, Bam Adebayo, they contributed their success in the NBA to Kenny damn Payne because he was an assistant there. And Kenny Payne can't coach a lick as far as a head coach, but he helped those guys develop. So how do you think those guys turn around and say, oh, well, we're going to support the Kentucky program with money and all that? Hell, you saw those guys when they came back into town. They were going to Louisville to play their damn pickup games because they loved Kenny Payne. Now, how do you think that made Kentucky fans feel? They're done with it. They want to win. They want to win. And as somebody who is opposed to Kentucky, who roots against everything Kentucky, I know the ins and outs of the program. I've known them forever. I've been a Louisville fan my whole life. You know your rivals. You know your rivals. And the bottom line is Kentucky fans are fed up. I don't think the administration was fed up because all the administration cares about is money. I mean, we know that. Yeah, we want to win, but as long as the arena is still full, we're still getting all this money into the program. That's what we want, which, by the way, is part of a head coach's job. So they were doing that. Tournament success. Yeah, we want more tournament success. We want to win, but the arena's full. The arena's full. People are coming in and buying all this merchandise. So as long as they're doing that, man, it is what it is. It is what it is. My man, Matt Hasselbring, he knows about UK. The UK fan base wants national championships. Don't care about how many NBA players they have. Yes, 1,000%. They'll take the NBA players, but the one thing I know about Kentucky fans right now, if they never had another NBA player walk through that door, and that could guarantee them the next 10 national championships over the next 25 years, they would do it. They would do it. Yes, it's nice to have NBA players, but they don't care about that. They want to win. And quiet as it's kept, that Calipari got away from that. He got away from that and then started saying that in the public. Hey, my first job is to make sure these young men have secure futures. Right or wrong, the fans said, no, we want them to be successful, but we want to win more than we want them to be successful. That sounds harsh, but every fan base is like that. So I don't want to just make it sound like I'm trying to bash on Kentucky fans. No. Every fan base says, yeah, we want the guys to be, our gals to be successful, but we want to win more than anything. Fan is short for fanatic. I'm the same way. I root for Louisville because I've loved them my whole life. I played at Kansas State. I love them. I want both of them to win. But I want them to win more than anything. That's it. I get so mad at Kansas State fans because they take the approach of being the woe is me. We can't do this. We're just the little engine that could fan base, and it doesn't have to be that way. They don't have to be that way. It drives me insane when I see that. I'm like, you're a Power 5 school. Stop. Kentucky fans are the exact opposite of that. We know we're Kentucky. We want to win. That's it. Fan, short for fanatic. I love it. Now let's get into the weeds a little bit with this. Let's get in the weeds with this. See, here, hold on. My man over on YouTube, my man Paul, which I love Paul, man. He's been a follower since day one. We love my man Paul. He says, I'll take that deal right now. Exactly. That's coming right from the mouth of a Kentucky fan. A diehard Kentucky fan. If not one NBA player walked through that door for the next 25 years, but you could guarantee that they would win 10 titles over that 25 years, that every Kentucky fan that's ever walked the face of this earth would take it. Boom. My man K-Ned. He comes on the insider, Big 12 insiders, the K-State insiders. We love him. He asks a ton of questions. I love this guy. Preach. Because he knows what I talk about with K-State fans. And he's a K-State guy. I just get so frustrated. I'm like, stop being woe is me. Stop it. You don't have to be that. Oh, by the way, if you continue being the woe is me fan base, you're never going to be considered one of the top places in America. I'm not saying that that's going to happen, but I know how it won't happen is if you continue to be, well, we can't get this guy. I would only rather have 3-star players. I don't want the best guys. We just want all guys. I'm like, come on, man. I get it that we're not going to get the best players all the time. But you're telling me that you can't get 4 stars from time to time? Yes, you can. Yes, you can. And you should want to have those. You should want to have them. But it is what it is. It is what it is. There it is right there. Talk trash to other fan bases about how many NBA players they have. Well, Kentucky fans have started doing that over the last 10 years because that's all they got. That's all they got. So, yeah, Chuck, the end goal is a championship. I mean, you can talk about, well, we got 25 guys in the NBA. Okay. How many titles you win? 1. Oh, you know what? So did we. So, what? Now what? Matter of fact, shouldn't you have more titles? You got all these guys in the NBA. Shouldn't you have more titles than 1? Another thing that gets left out is Coach Cal, his coaching, his actual X's and O's coaching. I think maybe he's going to have to start getting into the weeds and getting back to that because, it's one thing when you have all the best players out there and you can't get it done. He's going to have to start doing some coaching. Arkansas might be in for a rude awakening. Do we know that Cal can really coach? I mean, it's a question. It's a question. Is he really that good of a coach? I don't know. K-Ned, you are 1,000% right. You are 1,000% right. Talking about Kansas State. I call it the Kent State syndrome. You are 1,000% right. None of these coaches that you mentioned, Tex Winter, Bill Snyder, Jack Gardner, none of them believe like that. I'll even go a step further. I don't think Lon Kruger didn't believe like that. They didn't believe. They thought we can get the best players and be the best that we can be. They didn't have that mindset of, well, we're Kansas State. We'll just take whatever we can get. No. So, no. Gets on my nerves. So let's flip the script here, people. Let's flip the script. Who does Kentucky go and get? Who do they go and get? Now, the first name that popped in my head, and I'll be honest, was Rick Pitino. I thought, hey, this is a perfect opportunity for Rick Pitino to give back because he doesn't want to be at St. John's. We all know that. He's only at St. John's because it was a Power 6 conference school, and they offered him the job. He doesn't want to be at St. John's. They don't have the resources, any of the stuff that he wants and probably needs to win. I don't think Jay Wright's coming out of retirement. I think Jay Wright had it perfect at Villanova. Jay Wright got out of coaching because he didn't like the landscape of where college athletic was. So I think Jay Wright is done. Not to mention, how old is Jay Wright? Let me look that up. How old is Jay Wright? 62. Well, he's still young enough. So, and it's not a rebuild job at Kentucky either. You know what I'm saying? It's not like he's coming into a job and he's got to rebuild. Bill Self is never leaving Kansas. You got to stop. So, somebody on TikTok said Bill Self. No, not happening. Not happening. My man Pat Cockrell, he said Bill Self. And since Bill Self is not leaving, Pat. Come on. So that was the first thought, was Rick Pitino. Jay Wright, actually, now that I think about it, it could make sense because it's not a rebuild. But Jay Wright, like I said, he got out for different reasons. I think he may have been burnt out, but he didn't like the landscape of college basketball, so he left. But it could make some sense. So they talked about Billy Donovan. They went after Billy Donovan before, and he said no, but he's in a different place now. Different mindset. Would he take the job? Now, he's going to ask Pitino about it, and he was an assistant at Kentucky, so he understands, but he's in the MVA. He's 58. He's 58, people. Dan Hurley is never going to leave. Yes, they've been saying Dan Hurley's name on Twitter. Why would you leave? You're the two-time defending, because I think they're going to beat Purdue. You've been to back-to-back finals games. Even if they lose, you've been to back-to-back finals games. You've won a title. I get paid a bunch. I can get any kid that I want. I'm in a great conference because the Big East is a great conference. My fan base loves me. They're not going to second guess every decision that I make, which at Kentucky, that's going to happen. Why would you leave that to go into the fire pit of Kentucky? He ain't doing that. So no. No. And no, they're not. Billy Donovan, they're not in contention for the playoffs anymore. So, not anymore. At least I don't think. Let me look at the standings because I don't think that they can make it anymore. Nope, I'm wrong. They're number 9. So they're in the playoffs, actually. Yeah, they're in the playoffs. Well, at least they'll be in the play-in game. So we'll see. Billy Donovan, I don't think is realistic. Now, the next is, he said, call Coach K. I've heard Nate Oates. Nate Oates got it going at Alabama. Made a Final Four for the first time in history. They've had very good tournament success lately. So, hold on. Somebody said, why wouldn't Self leave Kansas for Kentucky? Well, what would he get at Kentucky that he doesn't have at Kansas? Money? He's got all the money. He's got a lifetime contract. They're one of the best schools in the history of the NCAA. They can get anybody that he wants. So why would you leave Kansas to go to Kentucky? So no, they can't get Bill Self. Bill Self, you would never leave Kansas. And again, they're not questioning every move that he makes. Bill Self jumped from Illinois to Kansas. Come on now. Stop. It is not the same thing. It's not even remotely the same thing. So, not even remotely the same thing. But I get where your thoughts going. I get where your head's at. But Bill Self's not leaving Kansas to go to Kentucky. That's a lateral move. And not only is it a lateral move, it's even a step down when you think of all the extra pressures that you're going to have to put yourself under. Because, again, you're going to have your detractors at Kansas because it's that kind of program. You're not going to get half the fan base questioning every move that you make like they do at Kentucky. He's not doing that. So that's out. Scott Drew's not going to leave. I heard that name earlier. Scott Drew's got it going in Baylor. Now, here's another thing. Scott Drew took over a Baylor program. Look, to me, Scott Drew resurrected a program that I don't think anybody in the history of college athletics, maybe other than Bill Snyder, but even then wasn't as bad as what Baylor was. And what I mean by that is the previous head coach at Baylor covered up a freaking murder where his guy killed another kid on the basketball team, and he covered it up. Scott Drew had to come in and clean that up. Hell, there was a year they couldn't even play non-conference games, for crying out loud. But Scott Drew loves it in Waco. He's a really religious guy. He's not going to go into the fire pit of Kentucky. He's not going to do that. He's a really religious guy. He's at a religious school. He has everything that he wants at Baylor. They just built him a brand new arena that they said was never going to happen. It happened. Scott Drew's not going to be the guy. So, Nate Oates, Rick Pitino, I'll tell you this. It's going to be somebody that we don't think about. That's who's going to get it's going to be a big name, but it's going to end up being somebody that we don't know, that we're not talking about right now. That's who's going to end up being the head coach. That's going to end up being the head coach. Is somebody that's a really big name that we're just not talking about. It may come from the NBA, because I think it's going to take somebody with that kind of personality to take the job, but they're going to need some college coaching chops. But I think that's who's going to do it. I mean, I can be wrong because obviously we don't know. But just think about the last coaches that have coached there. They had Rick Pitino, and then they hired Tubby Smith. Tubby Smith was an assistant there, went to Georgia and was successful, comes back, boom. And they were good, and then they ran Tubby out of there. I mean, Tubby was winning 24-plus games a year. That wasn't good enough. Decided to get Billy Gillespie, which could have been the disaster of disasters. So, Seth with the super chat coming in hot. Will Wade, Arkansas fans wanted him. I don't know, Seth. I don't think Kentucky fans would welcome Will Wade in. I don't think they would. First of all, he's not a big enough name. Will Wade lives in the weeds. And what I mean by that, he will cheat, but what he did is legal now. So I just don't think Kentucky fans are going to allow for that. I don't think they're going to say and take a guy that came from Morehead State. I think that's where Will Wade is coaching right now. I could be wrong. So I just don't think that that's what he's going to do. I don't think that's what, because Arkansas didn't. Here's the thing. Oh, he's at McNeese State. Sorry. McNeese State. I apologize. Not Morehead. McNeese. Here's the thing about Will Wade. Nobody has hired him. Nobody's hired him. Like, they keep bringing his name, keeps getting brought up for all these jobs. Louisville job. Arkansas job. All these jobs, people keep bringing his name up. He doesn't get hired. I'm guessing it's because when people actually do a deep dive, the cheating that he was doing goes even deeper than that. And people are like, absolutely not. We can't do it. We can't do it. So that's the thing. But yeah, you look at the coaches, then they brought in Calipari, and they loved them for a while. But it's just like any job. They'll love you till they hate you. And finally, they just got to the point to where, hey, man, where are the titles? Where are the titles? I need some titles here. Stop with the nonsense. I need titles. Don't tell me about all these lives that you're changing. Because the one thing I will say this, you go to the University of Kentucky to play basketball, your life got changed just by that. That's number one. Now, being able to help kids and put them into the NBA and change their lives and their families' lives forever, I mean, that kind of goes without saying. Yes, that's a great thing. And you want to have that be part of your program. But Kentucky fans want to win, man. And just like any fan, again, I don't want to just bash on Kentucky fans. Fans want to win. And that's fine that you're doing all this, but where are the wins, man? Where are my titles? Where are my titles? Which, again, brings into question, is Cal really that good of a coach? So, Chuck Miller said Doc Rivers. Chuck, I love you. I love you. If Kentucky hired Doc Rivers, that would be one of the greatest days of my life. I've had several graduations. I've won state titles. I got married. It would go right to the top of the list. Because I know that Kentucky is going to suck if Doc Rivers was their head coach. Lord have mercy. Woo! No, I know I'm not bashing you, Paul. I know I'm not bashing Kentucky fans. I'm just saying all fan bases want to win. And it sounds bad when you say fans want to win more than helping kids improve their lives. It sounds bad. It may even be bad. But it just sounds bad. Nobody's saying they don't want to help kids, but they want to win right along with it. Maybe that's the word phrasing I should use. Fans want to win right along with the helping. Does that make sense? They want to win. Ooh, Kelvin Sampson. Now that's a spicy one. Kelvin Sampson's a spicy one. And damn right he would jump. Give him the resources? Bruce Pearl. Spicy. I like TikTok's thinking. They're thinking. Kelvin Sampson would be. Now, here's the thing, though. While Kelvin Sampson is an outstanding coach, if we're really being honest, does Kelvin Sampson have the recruiting chops to continue at Kentucky? I think he would, because then he would be the head coach at Kentucky and he can go into homes. So he can go into homes and bring kids in. And he's a coach. But I don't know. I'm just telling you, don't take your eyes off of old Ricky P. Don't you do it. Don't you do it. Don't take your eyes off Rick Pitino. I'm telling you, watch his flight movements. Watch his movements. It can get tricky. Oh, and we know Ricky P is tricky. So it'll be interesting, man. It'll be interesting. It's going to be, I just think it's just going to be somebody that we don't know, that we're not thinking about. You know, smart ADs have contingency plans. And you can't tell me that after the season, I mean, when has Coach Cal had to have a conversation with the AD on whether he wanted to stay or not? Why would he have to do that? He wouldn't. But now he's having conversation. Coach Cal is probably like, Calipari's like, hey, man, I'm done with this place. Let me just find a place that's great and I'm going to leave. And the AD is probably thinking the same thing. Hey, man, he's going to leave. As soon as if somebody that's good enough offers him a job, he's going to take it. We need a contingency plan. It's Seth, not Roy Williams, man. Roy Williams is done. And look, you got to stop thinking that somebody from a Duke, a Kansas, a North Carolina, they're not going to Kentucky. They're not going to Kentucky. Not to mention they've already made their names. They're not doing that. The thing that's Rick Pitino is that Rick Pitino's moved around so much, his legacy at places isn't cement. Like, he was at Kentucky, but he wasn't at Kentucky 10 years. He was at Louisville longer than he was at Kentucky. You know? So, but I think he'd go back to Kentucky in a heartbeat. Kelvin Sampson, it can make some sense. They lost some guys. Kelvin Sampson's a little older, but he would listen. He would listen. Let me see something. He would absolutely listen. But I don't know. Yeah, no, Kelvin Sampson's 68. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. I'm not trying to say that 68 is old, but in the coaching world, starting a new job, I mean, he ain't going to coach another decade. So I think Kelvin Sampson is pretty comfortable where he is. And look, I think Houston is in the final game tonight if their point guard doesn't sprain his ankle. I think they're in the final game. That's how good Houston was this year. So, no, we covered it, Ryan. Bill Self's never going to leave Kansas. That doesn't make any sense. Rick Pitino's 71, but Rick Pitino doesn't have any chops. Again, they would take him back, and Rick Pitino would groom somebody to be the next coach right behind him. So, Kelvin Sampson I guess he doesn't really have a legacy anywhere else. But you could see Pitino coaching another 8 years. I think you could. Things change, don't get me wrong. But I think you could see him coaching another 8 years. And he would jump at the chance if Kentucky wanted to hire him. He would jump at it. Mark Jackson, nobody's going to hire Mark Jackson. I don't know why. First of all, I think Mark Jackson's an NBA coach, but nobody's going to hire Mark Jackson. I have no clue what the reasoning behind it all. I got a little bit of a clue, but it's a different conversation for a different day. So, man, let's move on. We are into all of this. Could you see them hiring a former player to coach? Like who? They're not going to hire like Mark Pope. Like, who's a former player that is now a coach that Kentucky would consider hiring? So I don't know. I don't know. Rondo's not a coach. So why are you all talking about Bronny? We're not talking about Bronny, TikTok. Come on, man. Stay up. The coach from, they said the coach from Bishop Sycamore. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. I'm excited. I shouldn't say excited. I'm interested to see what Kentucky's going to do.